All right, let's move on to the Michigan Wolverines, who are finally facing a real opponent. They are hosting the Maryland Terrapins. Michigan is a 17-point favorite. The over-under is 64.5. This will be big noon on Fox. So, like I said, first real team, quote-unquote, that Michigan has faced this year. However, Maryland last week barely survived an upset bid by SMU, 34-27. But they are bringing an offense that Michigan definitely has not seen so far this year. Taulia Tagovailoa has been balling, over 70% completion. He's throwing for yards and yards and yards. They have a running game to join that passing attack. They returned all 5 starting offensive linemen. They are coming in ready for the Michigan Wolverines. Is Maryland pulling off the upset?
No. No, they're not.
No, I don't think so either.
Their offense is obviously good, but their defense is so bad, and just traditionally, if these aren't the types of games they win, I heard a stat earlier where Maryland plays the top teams in the Big Ten. I think it's Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, and Iowa. And on average, Maryland loses those games by 33 points or something, 32 points maybe. And then they can beat up on the other guys, Indiana, Illinois, Northwestern, Nebraska, whoever. They can win those games, but whenever they go up against any of the marquee Big Ten teams, they just always get their doors blown off. And I think for Harbaugh's tenure at Michigan, they've never beaten Maryland by less than 21 points. So it's just not a recipe that has typically worked well for Maryland. And this isn't their first year that they've had a good offense. I just don't think their defense can keep up at all with what Michigan is doing. And while Michigan's defense has been untested and Maryland's going to be the best offense that they faced so far, obviously the same's true on the other end. Maryland's offense hasn't been tested by a real defense either. And now they are going up against Michigan, who might have one of the better defenses in the country. They certainly fly to the ball and get to the quarterback a whole heck of a lot in these first 3 games that they've played against nobody. So I think it will be interesting. But there's something really interesting about it is Maryland started off, I think, as a 17-point underdog. And that was kind of surprising for how low it was. I think most people thought it'd be 20, 21, something like that. And a lot of people have bet on Michigan, and then the line still hasn't moved. It's still standing pat there with Maryland at 17. So maybe Vegas doesn't think Michigan's quite as good as that number 4 ranking that they have next to them. So that might be, that might give you a little hint that they think Maryland can stay in this game. But other than that, I don't really see a reason why Maryland would be able to hang around, within and make it respectable, right? 2 scores or something. I just don't see it.
Yeah, so, for whatever it's worth, the Terrapins have only won once over the Wolverines in program history. That was at the end of the Brady Hoke era. Last year, Michigan absolutely dismantled Maryland 59-18. This year, though, Taulia is completing over 77% of his passes. He has got receiving weapons. Rakim Jarrett, Jashawn Jones, Jacob Copeland. He's got a couple of really good tight ends in Corey Dyches and C.J. Dupree, who is also known as Baby Gronk. But like you said, this defense gave up over 500 yards to SMU last week. They also had 15 penalties for 140 yards. So they're not very disciplined either, which definitely doesn't help. Some more stats and facts for you guys to throw yourselves into this game. Blake Corum is leading the nation right now with 7 touchdowns. So, play that for what it is as well. And yes, Maryland does have a running game finally to kind of balance out what they've been doing passing-wise. Redshirt freshman Roman Hemby has been making a whole bunch of noise. He just came off a career-high 151 yards and a touchdown. So they do have some balance there as well. But, yeah, I'm with you as far as their defense just not being able to hang with the Michigan offense. This one, there's going to be a lot of points put up in this one. Look, I just read to you what they did to him last year, 59-18. That was with Cade throwing the ball, kind of, sort of, for Michigan. So I think with JJ at the helm, and actually in a football game, this Michigan squad can put up 60-plus points on this Maryland team unless the defense, finds a way to get some turnovers, some mistakes made by Michigan, which you really wouldn't expect too many of those to happen. It just seems like it's going to be too much of the Wolverines and not enough help for Taulia to go along with that prolific passing attack. That defense is it's just not that good yet. They still need some work on that side of the football to really hang with a team that looks as balanced and complete as the Wolverines look on offense.
Yeah, and even, going back to it, in terms of Jim Harbaugh's tenure at Michigan, these just aren't the kinds of games that he loses, right? He usually doesn't lose when he has the better team. It's when teams are equal or just, slightly above Michigan. It's usually when he's losing those games. There's some exceptions, obviously, but you never really get the sneak up game on Jim Harbaugh like I think a Maryland win would, right? It'd be an unranked team beating the number 4 team in the country. It'd be pretty shocking. And throughout his 7 now, or going on to 8 years now at Michigan, these are usually just the games that Harbaugh and his coaching staff and his players tend to dominate, certainly tend to win. And I think it'll be the case Saturday that kind of trend continues, but they should give Michigan's defense at least a test. So I think even if you're not watching to see that Michigan wins, because not that it's a foregone conclusion, I want to give Maryland a little bit more respect than that, but it's certainly not something that's expected, right? You expect Michigan to win, but where you wouldn't watch the entire Hawaii game or something, or Colorado State, because you knew Michigan was going to win by 50. This is a game that you're probably going to watch all of, because I don't anticipate the starters getting pulled for any reason unless there's 2 minutes left in the game and Michigan's up 20 or something, right? But it's a game that the starters should play the entire time, so you should be looking at the defense, because even if Michigan does win, and they put up 62 points, if they give up 42, there'd still be reason to be concerned. So I guess that's the real kind of thing that you should be watching, is watch how that defense reacts. If we remember a couple years ago when Michigan played Indiana, I think the week before they played Ohio State, they beat Indiana. They beat them pretty bad, but Indiana kept having success on the crossing routes. And it was okay, well, that's kind of like a bad omen for what's about to happen to Ohio State, or what's about to happen against Ohio State. And it was, right? Ohio State obviously just has better athletes than Indiana did, studied the game tape, and then just buried Michigan in the way that Indiana tried to, but couldn't. So if you're Michigan, I think that's kind of what you have to prevent from happening this game, is you can't give the better teams on your schedules kind of blueprints to beat you. And I guess if you're Michigan, that's the thing I would be cognizant of, and the thing I'd be watching more so than just the win and the loss.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And that was the one thing I was going to bring up when you were talking about, Harbaugh doesn't lose these kind of games. And I was like, well, Indiana gave him a bit of a scare with those crossing routes, but the final score didn't really show that. So you're absolutely right. So unless those worst teams are wearing green and white, Michigan seems to do pretty well against teams that they are absolutely better than. And this is one of those things, especially with the defense for Maryland. They are really bad against the run, and this is where Michigan absolutely excels so far this year. Michigan defensively, the numbers are skewed, but you're looking at first in pass efficiency defensively and third in total. But again, they haven't played anybody either. So if you're a Michigan fan watching this, be prepared to give up passes. It's going to happen. Taulia and those wide receivers and those tight ends, they know what they're doing. They're going to move the football on you. But if you remember last year as well, they are prone to mistakes that you can take advantage of, turnovers that you can take advantage of. You are the better football team. You should win this football game. You should win this football game convincingly. So let's get to the spread, -17. Ryan, Maryland or Michigan?
I'll say Maryland. I just don't like that it hasn't moved.
All right, well, I'm going to say Michigan, and I'm going to go with the over of 64.5. I think a lot of points are going to be put up in this game, especially by Michigan, but I think Maryland's going to do their part too.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on there.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN, and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.